Hey folks, Machinery Pete here. I am down in Hutchinson, Kansas, and I'm with my friend Darrow Pankratz, and been wanting to do this video interview for quite some time. Darrow is the CEO of Prairie Land Partners here. Darrow, you have, is it 9 stores now?
Yes, we have 9.
Okay. And Darrow, I've always loved your business philosophy and kind of wider philosophy on life. And I didn't know until just recently that you got your start in education as a teacher and an assistant principal. And I'm just curious to hear your philosophy on how that's helped in the farm machinery business. And as we talk, we also have a treat here. We have Darrow's father, Ted Pankratz. Ted, thanks for being here this morning. And we got a great story to tell here, folks. Darrow, why don't you just get us started here now? You grew up a little boy in Oklahoma?
Yep, I was born in eastern Oklahoma and grew up there, and also in western Oklahoma in Enid, and went to school in Kansas, and kind of grew up working with my dad. Either any job he had, somehow he was managed some farms, or he was farming himself, or he was running a John Deere dealership, whatever it was, he kind of got to tag along. I always liked going to work, and so that's really how we kind of got into this business. And then I got out of high school, and it was mid-70s, and went to college. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and kind of ended up with an industrial arts degree, and went into teaching and coaching a little football.
Now, where did you get your first teaching job?
First teaching job was actually right where I live now. It was in the Buehler School Districts.
Here in Hutchinson, Kansas?
Yep, right here around Hutchinson. That's where all my kids went to school for 13 years and all graduated. Yeah.
Okay. What were you teaching when you started?
I was teaching industrial arts, so I was teaching just traditional woods and metals, and we did some energy stuff back then. The energy thing was kind of a big deal, so we did some little different kinds of classes with that, and I did that for about 3 years, and then I went to a little town of Conway Springs where I was a head football coach and athletic director, taught some drafting for a couple of years, where I got my master's degree and then became an administrator.
So then you... And what kind of football coach did you guys? I think I asked you yesterday, but you guys run the wishbone back there in the 70s?
Well, we did run the wishbone some. The kids believed in it more than the coach. We found that, what the kids believed in works. And so we adapted to that, and we had some success. We didn't win state championships, but I got to coach a bunch of kids with great hearts who would play their tails off for you. And we were really good defensively, but their coach wasn't a very good offensive coach.
Well, what did you love most about coaching, Darrow?
It's just a lot of fun to see somebody work hard, set a goal and get rewards for it. It's also, good to see them fail, to fall a little short, pull together as a team, recognize that, this isn't about me.
Right.
The more selfish I get, the harder the goals are to achieve. And so it's really fun to take a bunch of kids. At the time, we're not expected to win a game, and they just would do anything we ask them. And they played and worked really, really hard. And so it's just fun to see the team succeed, and kind of grow up to be better young men. I guess that's the most fun part.
And then you became an assistant principal?
Yeah, I became assistant principal. I think I was 27, 28 years old.
A young age.
Relatively young, I guess. I didn't really give it much thought at the time, but I had a lot of support from my wife, and she was mowing the football fields and those kind of things while I was going to class in the summers, and so we kind of did it together. And worked for a great leader, a guy by the name of Leo Eck, and who we lost a number of years ago to cancer. But
he was the principal?
Yeah, he was the principal there, and had a big influence on me about the responsibility you have as when you're in those positions to be a part of helping people become better at what they do. Because most people really would like to get better at what they do.
Sure.
They're not coming to work just trying to go through the motions. Most of them, we feel like, really have the desire. Sometimes they just need a little encouragement.
Right. And you and Leo were a little ahead of the game in terms of getting into the classroom and observing and trying to help your teachers, your staff get better?
Well, I'd probably say Leo and the superintendent were a little more ahead of the game. I was just pretty green and was doing what I was encouraged to do. But I really didn't know at the time, we didn't. But we were in the classroom pretty much every week.
Okay.
Sometimes just strictly observation. Honestly, I would go in the classroom just to hear some people who were just amazing instructors. Just watch them teach. And I was a young administrator. I wanted to be an instructional leader, so I wanted to see really good ones. Okay. And it really was fun. You would see kids engaged and asking questions. And you go to another classroom, maybe not so much.
Right.
And so how do we help those people, particularly young teachers, understand that our job is the learning.
Right.
Ours isn't delivery. It's about learning. And so it was really a great experience for me.
Well, this is what I find interesting, Darrow. Now, you were a young guy coaching football, an assistant principal. How did you get into the farm machinery business? Here you are.
Well,
today. How did it happen?
Yeah, my dad ran a dealership down in Oklahoma for the Longs family, and they had 4 stores. One of the first multi-store locations I think around, and they hired Dad to open a new branch in Enid. And so I went to work with him every day, and I was just a kid, 12, 13 years old, and so I was around that, and he was able to start farming, which was his love, and he farmed for a long time, and then we eventually farmed in Kansas, and we did business here, and the dealership closed in November of '88. Pretty tough times in the '80s,
right?
And my dad had a relationship with Charlie Gause, who was with John Deere, and eventually we got together and say, well, let's give it a shot. And
this was 1980.
1989 we opened.
And the Pancratz implement?
Pancratz implement, yep.
So, Pop, what do you remember about that, getting into business with your son, Darrow?
Well, there was a lot of risk back at that time. The economy was very bad.
Right.
We think it's bad now. It should have been here then.
Right.
But Darrow's first job was sweeping the floor in the parts department when I was downtown Enid at the old dealership. And so he kind of grew up in this field. You know, it isn't entirely new to it.
Right. And Ted, you have...
And Darrow's grandpa was also a John Deere dealer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my wife's dad was a John Deere dealer.
Okay. And where was that?
That was at Pryor, Oklahoma. And
that
was my first job working for him.
Okay. What was the name of the dealership?
That was Springer Implement Company.
Springer Implement Company in Pryor, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Now, Ted, you have quite a history with John Deere. You actually... Well, why don't you just tell the story back in the mid-'50s?
Well, I started with him in the shop. One of the things I like to remember is what we overhauled an A John Deere for. We got $34.50 labor to overhaul a tractor. And if I did it right, I could do it in 10 hours. But that's where it started.
Wow.
And then went from there to manage that dealership later after Deere closed their plant.
Okay.
Worked nine years for John Deere Chemical Company.
John Deere Chemical. Tell us more about that, Ted.
They decided to go into basically nitrogen fertilizer business that was very new at that time, and they happened to locate at Pryor, Oklahoma, because there's a big power dam close by requiring a lot of power. At Grand River Chemical was the name of the company.
This was mid-1950s?
And it would be in they started building plant in 53, and we opened in about 55.
Okay.
And then the board of directors saw what direction it was going, and it wasn't very profitable, and they decided to terminate that division then in 1964.
1964. Yeah. So at that point, Ted, did you go back into the implement business?
Then I went back into the chemical business, fertilizer business, for 2 years for a grain company to build facilities for dealers.
Okay.
And then after that, I went and started the new dealership at Enid, Oklahoma, for the Long family. They were expanding, and we ended up having 4 stores, and they continued on until the '80s, the middle '80s.
Right.
That was the end of their farming operation as well as their dealers. And
had you already moved up here to Kansas then in the late '80s?
Yeah, we moved here in 1979.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then...
and then I farmed, and I have another business that I've done for many years, and that is applying waste from a wastewater treatment plant to my farm, get fertilizer from there. I get all my fertilizer from there. I've done that 23 years now.
So now I know where Darrow gets the entrepreneurial thinking. He gets it from you, Ted, from Dad. Well, Darrow, hey, Darrow, are you filming while I'm filming?
I was videoing my dad answering. So
see, I've interviewed a lot of people. No one's ever filmed while I've been filming. I like how you think. But tell us, let's go back to the late '80s, Darrow. You get into business with your dad. What was that like?
You know,
and leaving teaching.
Yeah, I think my dad always been a role model of just kind of going and doing things, and so we knew there was some risk, but I think we always felt like I could go back to teaching. I loved what I did. I didn't leave because I didn't want to be there. I had a great experience with kids and in education. There's a new kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I think, as you just mentioned. He kind of instilled in me a little bit. And an opportunity. We'd worked together, background in cattle and farming. So we've worked together most of our lives with really no problems. So it just seemed to make sense. Let's go give it a shot.
Okay.
And my wife was willing to go along, and we took a significant pay cut, and so we had to get a little creative. My wife one day then said, "Well, I'm not going to teach anymore because I want to stay home with the kids." And so we were the church janitors, and I sold some cell phones, and we hustled a little bit for a few years, and then the business took off a little bit, and we were able to just do it with me working and her staying with our kids.
And now the history with starting with Pankratz Implement, how did that become the 9 stores your Prairie Land?
Well, in about '98, my dad and I had a pretty straightforward discussion when we started that I wanted an opportunity to buy him out, to lead the company, and he was true to his word. He did exactly what he said he was doing. So I bought him out when he was about 66, and that was about '98. And in '08, this was kind of '05, is when the big consolidation was happening with Deere, and we started talking to some dealers locally, and we kind of decided that there was one to the north that kind of was interested since we were a single store, one to the south, and so I talked to our team. I said, why don't we let's do all 3 of these. Let's do something kind of special. And so we merged 3 companies. Okay. Our motto was to keep our eye on the ball, and so we shared inventory as soon as we agreed to it. We shared inventory at cost. So he could sell out of mine, I could sell out of theirs, and certainly there's challenges with that. We'd been competitors. We were now partners, and so there were some challenges with it, but we kind of kept our eye on the ball. We wanted to remain relevant with Deere. We wanted to be a dealer of tomorrow. There's the terminology we use today, and so we just went to work. And it wasn't really that complicated. It was challenging at times. We had to accept different roles, but that's the way it works.
Darrow, it just seems to me, talking, visiting with you, that roll up your sleeves, take stuff head on is just kind of how you roll. Is that from when you were a kid with the values you got from your folks?
Yeah, it's sometimes you don't recognize the good fortune you have, but from when I was young, Dad would just give me a job and expect you to do it. And all the partners that we had were that kind of people. Yeah. They're just kind of grassroots folks. They owned businesses. Some were in custom harvesting businesses. Some were in John Deere businesses longer. But they're just really down-to-earth people. We shared very common values. I think the processes and the work can be managed, but you got to have kind of common values about how you want to go about business. And we were pretty fortunate. They all came from Sunday school, quite frankly. We all kind of went to similar kinds of upbringing. I think that made it a little easier.
Right. And Dad, what was that like when you guys set sail in the late '80s, working with your son?
Well, we had a kind of a plan when we started this company. I knew I didn't want to stay in it forever because I had 2 other things going, and I thought, it would be good if Darrow could work in different departments before he could take over and have a little feel of it. We tried to, or we've always tried to give a guy a job and then let him figure out how to do it.
Interesting.
And
value in that, figuring it out.
And I think it helped with us hiring employees that had the same that had some experience in what they were going to do.
Right.
And I think that was important. And my idea about selling is different probably than a lot that we help people buy what they need. It wasn't our primary goal to sell them a piece of machinery. It was to make sure it was a piece of machinery that would do the job they want, and to do that you ask a bunch of questions when you start to see what they want to accomplish. So and it helps both of us sell then.
That's kind of a longer term approach than
I guess it is, yeah.
And that was just felt like the right way for you to do it back.
Yeah, well, that's the way I like to be treated, so I couldn't want to treat other people that way.
So you were kind of getting into being a true partner before maybe people were talking about it back then.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And Darrow, now as you transitioned from the education field into the farm machinery business, and here all these years later, I can still hear echoes of the coaching and the leadership and trying to help your people. grow and be better. Can you talk about how or do you find the education background helped some of this?
Yeah, I don't know how cognitive it was, but I really believe that people basically want to do good work, and we all have blind spots. We all have things that we can be encouraged by, and the bar is not set by a leader; it's set by the organization. And honestly, our bar is set by the New Testament, I believe, and so that's really we use it actually as a part of what we believe leadership should be about.
Sure.
And so it's not about a person; it's about a common goal. It's a common vision that we have, and you help me get there, I help you get there. We kind of try to flatten the organization. Drew is our marketing guy. He coaches me a lot when we do some of the marketing stuff that I'm involved with. Or, Jamie comes from John Deere, and he might coach me a little bit on how John Deere is going to see how we do this. I might coach him a little bit on how to supervise somebody because he hadn't had that responsibility. So, I spend probably a lot of my time coaching, if you will, but not because I have the answers, but because we can find the better answer together. And,
right.
and you can hear that in my dad's comments, that this is always a partnership with our customers.
Right.
For me, our employees really are my customers. Those are the people I serve. And so I think that kind of rings true, hopefully. I don't have all the answers, but you know what? If we put our heads together between the two of us, got a pretty good shot.
Right.
He's not aware of probably the term, but the term is the Socratic Method, and that's used in questioning. Obviously, you understand that. You do a great job of that. And, so my master's degree is administration supervision. Sometimes people think that maybe their college wasn't worth it. I had a few classes that were excellent. A guy by the name of Dr. John Morton, who was the superintendent of schools in Newton, really was an amazingly courageous leader who would handle the awkward situations, approach the difficult ones, put it on the table. And he was just really impactful to convey the responsibilities we have when we get leadership to help people, hold them accountable, set the expectations, and then work side by side with them. A lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you do have a lot of fun doing what you do, Darrow. And also talk about the value of good people and talent. It seems like you have quite a variety of people with backgrounds in your organization, and they're just dynamic people. People like Casey Seymour that I've been dealing with, and but talk about the value of the business, getting the right people.
Well, we've been very blessed. I think that our values align with a lot of people about what we want to do. Going back to what Dad said about serving customers and taking care of them, they share that. And so we try to hire bright people that are not just smart IQ, but also from emotional side, they understand how to work as a team.
Right.
They like to solve problems. They like to take responsibility. We got a lot of real young leaders. I call them young leaders. They're 40-somethings, and that's a young leader to me, that are bright and really driven. So we some of it's good luck. Some of it hopefully is some planning and some things we do. But there is. That's the power you have, is just continue to hire high-quality people. We built our first business, Pancreas Implement, on the backs of people who had the right values and the right work ethic. They didn't always have all the skills.
Right.
But what we did have is we had a desire to have the skills, and they just worked hard.
Right.
Because some of this is just hard work.
Hard work.
You just got to get it done.
Roll up the sleeves.
We've been just very blessed. In this part of the country and in rural America, really we have a lot deeper bench, I think, than maybe they have in some place. And that's because a lot of them grew up working with their parents.
Right. I would agree. Now, we have a big audience of young people on social media that follow our videos and such. Ted, I would just be curious, from your successful career, all the different things you've done, what advice you would have to young people that wanted to get into a career, whether it's farming or the farm machinery business. What piece of advice would you have for them, Ted?
Probably to take a job working in a place, maybe sweeping floors or whatever they do, and observe what's going on around them, and see how people can move up by doing a good job,
Right.
And the golden rule isn't a bad thing. Treat other people the way you've been treated.
That works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And keep your eyes open. I like that.
Yep.
That's very good. How about you, Darrow? In terms of all the, and your career path, you were a teacher, you were a coach, you're an assistant principal, now you're a CEO of a vibrant John Deere organization. What advice would you have for young people?
Well, I think today sometimes they're looking for a job. the job. And I think Dad's point's really good, is that it's not the job, it's the attitude towards that job. And, you know, sometimes it's not exactly right, but, you know, sometimes the paths you're given, some of the times the doors that are closed open better doors. And so it's really about your attitude and willing to work and work as a team and make a contribution. And it really, it comes around. It works. This wasn't a career path by any means. And I think the other one is about passion. You really got to have the heart for it. Right. If you don't have a heart for it, that doesn't mean you'll have a bad day. You know, don't give up too quick.
Right.
But if you'll fight through some of that, you get some pretty outstanding rewards. And I'm as blessed as anybody you're going to run into, getting to do something I love to do every day with people I love to work with in an industry that cares and makes a difference really in the world. It feeds the world.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty noble place to work.
Well, I would agree completely, and it's been fun. This is why I wanted to interview you, Darrow, to unlock that, get you talking about the passion for what you do. And thanks for taking time. And folks, Darrow and his crew at Prairie Land, they'll be featured on U.S. Farm Report in a couple weeks here. I think the third week in June. So thanks for your help there, Darrow, yesterday.
It
was great fun. And Ted, an honor to meet you and visit with you. Thanks for sharing your unique history, and again, it was a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.